Good afternoon. You're listening to My Conscious Dad on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS at our new hour. Every Friday at noon, we're going to be here. So welcome, past Friday matinee listeners. We're so excited to have you, and I hope that this show brings some knowledge to you, and maybe you will join us next week. I'm your host, Jasmine Urbina, here in the studio with my dad and co-host, Alex Urbina. And today we're going to be talking about difficult people and how to deal with them.
Yes, we are. I'd like to first start off with the conversation that we as human beings have about people being difficult. I think the way that you frame people, the way that you put people in a box, if I see somebody as difficult and I label them difficult, well, guess what I'm going to keep creating? What kind of an experience do you think I'm going to keep creating with this person? I'm going to keep creating difficult experiences. So I think that the power of word is important, first of all, and that we stop labeling people in a negative way. What I like to use, or I like to invite people to use, is a different kind of language. And so I invite people to change the words that they use. And one of the transitioning words from difficult or hard is challenging. Challenging is a word that I really love because it's neutral, and it implies that it might be a challenge now, but I can overcome it. So I like to say when you're dealing with people that don't seem to click with you, or in a relationship we're always at odds with each other, or we don't see it the same way, or we're always in arguments, I like to call them either challenging people or unreasonable. But to use the word difficult, I believe we're so powerful that the word we use, we actually affirm them. We're affirming that they're difficult. We are projecting our value and our reality onto them, and then we're wondering why all these difficult people are always in our lives.
I think it's funny too, because sometimes you could be saying, oh, this person's difficult. For example, you could say, my boss is difficult. So let's say a new person comes to work and you have to show them the ropes, and you say, oh, that's just Jim. He's our boss. He's super difficult. And all of a sudden Jim has now a perception, oh no, our boss is difficult, or has a different perception of him and thinks, in my experience, he's not difficult. You are. So sometimes it could reflect bad on you too if you are going around calling people difficult or they give you a hard time, when it might be your relationship with that person, not necessarily them.
Absolutely. And I think that's empowering and very powerful for an individual to take responsibility for their own perceptions, their own reality, their own experiences, and be honest enough to say, you know what, Jim is a great guy. I seem to have trouble figuring out how to communicate with him, or I'm working on figuring out how to get Jim to get with the program, or for us to both get on the same page. I'd much rather you take responsibility for you figuring out how to master the ability to get people to relate to you, so you can have a common language and you can understand each other, and then you can move forward. And one of the things I want to talk about when it comes to somebody so-called being difficult, are you open to the possibility that they're difficult more of a perspective that you have? People are difficult because you see them from your perspective as difficult, and you've already labeled them difficult, and that they're only difficult because you have not figured out how to interact with them in a powerful way. Because somebody that might be difficult to you, Jasmine, I might have a great relationship with them and we just hit it and we click, and so they're not difficult like it's for real, like they're really like that. They're just difficult to you because you haven't figured out within yourself and your ability to relate, to be able to articulate yourself to them in a way that they trust you, that they understand you, that you influence them, that they're open to ideas. Because I might have a whole totally different relationship and they're not difficult to me. And if they're not difficult to me, that means that they're not really difficult like in the world, like it really is what it is.
Yeah, a lot of people, I'll hear them say, oh, I don't like that person because our personalities clash. And I don't necessarily agree that that's really what's going on. I think, or I guess I would say they think that's what's going on. To them, that's real, but to everybody else on the outside, your personalities aren't clashing. You just haven't figured out, or we haven't figured out, how to have a relationship that's effective, that can communicate well. And I think even using words like that, like our personalities clash, is saying, oh, I'm never going to be friends with that person. So it's kind of like you said, using the right words to make sure that it's not just you.
Yeah, and I like to, in my own personal life, I like to look at people that I've have challenges with having a relationship where we're on the same page, or we agree to disagree, and we're able to have a powerful relationship where we can move forward and learn from each other and teach from each other. I always try to look at what's missing from me that Tim or Tom or Charisse or Christina can't see what I can, the kind of value I can bring to this kind of relationship, or how I can support them, or how I can help them, or how I can love them or care for them or want the best for them. What's missing for me? Do I show up maybe as an older brother that they don't like? Is it that when I speak, I am being interpreted them as a know-it-all? What's missing for me? Is it my tone? Is it that when I walk in, do I appear to be guarded? So I'm always trying to figure out from what I can control, which is only me. Who do I need to be? Who do I need to evolve into to make people feel safe enough to open up, to trust, to engage with me, to be able to have that coercion where we're back and forth and we're really clicking and we have a powerful interaction with each other.
So what would you say to people who are hearing this and probably are thinking, well, I don't need to change for anybody. I'm me, and this, if they like me, they do, and if they don't, then that's their problem.
And that's true. You don't need to change for anybody. But I can tell you this. That theory can really get you to a certain point where you've kind of backed yourself into a corner, and you're only able to attract a certain amount of people that are like-minded and think the way you think, or you might even be attracting people that only are attracted to you because they want something from you, some kind of payoff, some kind of goodie. You'll be amazed how many people are friends, or you guys click with each other because you guys are giving each other goodies. You guys are giving each other payoffs. Like, I'll buy your insecurities if you buy my insecurities, and I'll pat you on the back and say, hey, that wasn't right, and so and so should have done that. And they feed our egos and they feed our victimization. But who wants to live a life like that? I'd rather have good friends of mine that are willing to, when I'm in a corner, come and say, well, if I'm complaining about somebody being challenging or difficult, or, have somebody come over to me that I care about that says, well, maybe it's you. Maybe you haven't been opening yourself up, or maybe you haven't trusted them. I'd rather have somebody call me on it rather than just buy my stories. You know what I mean? And so there's that possibility that there's something within you that you keep not wanting to grow past, not wanting to evolve, not wanting to challenge, not wanting to see within yourself, that limits you from getting along with certain people, or clicking with people, or creating some kind of a relationship. But to answer your question, you don't owe anybody anything. If you want to just live by that motto and die by that motto that I don't have to change for nobody, you can ride that as long as you can. What I've experienced from my own personal experience, as well as other people, is those types of people that think like that, they slowly go down this road where they start to push people away, people that they really care about, brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, moms, dads, people that they say they love the most. They end up kind of pushing them away because they're so stubborn and they're so stuck on, I don't want to change for nobody. You don't have to change for nobody. You don't owe that to anyone. But if you want to have extraordinary relationships with more people, you're going to have to change. I'm sorry. You're going to have to evolve. You're going to have to grow. You're going to have to learn how to get along with other styles of people and personalities and behaviors and dysfunctions. You're going to have to learn how to master that art.
Yeah, and when you really think about it, every relationship that you're in is different. You act different towards different people. So, you have a different relationship with your boss than you do with your wife or your kids. So why not? You kind of do change a little bit, and I know it's in your comfort zone, but if you really think about it, if you want to network and you want to be involved with other people and in other communities, you can't just be the same way you are with your wife, your mom, your kids, your boss. That's only going to work so far.
That's
in
right.
a certain
That's
circle.
right. What I would love is for people to decide that the people in my life that I've labeled difficult or hard to be in relationship with, that you change the wording first. That's a first step. Change the wording, change the label, and start referring to them as challenging. I have a challenge trying to figure out how to hook the heart of my son, so that he can be open to some of my suggestions, and that we can share back and forth. Or I have this challenge with this coworker because they appear to be unreasonable. And again, it's your perception. So they appear to you to be unreasonable. Doesn't mean that they're unreasonable in life. It's just that's the meaning that and the experience that you're having. So, I have this challenging coworker and they appear to be unreasonable, and I need to figure out how to communicate in a way that they can hear it in a way that empowers them, that gets them to trust me, that they realize that I'm really a good guy and I care about them, and I want to, have this dialogue with them so that it's so that there's value there.
So how do I communicate with a quote unquote difficult person, or someone I think is difficult? I know for me, sometimes I'll just go right up to them already expecting a fight or something, challenging. And is that like affecting them? Like sometimes I feel like they know.
Again, earlier I used the word projection. If you're already seeing them as difficult, you're already projecting the difficultness in them and in the relationship. So you're already bringing that energy in. And we're so powerful that with our intentions and with our beliefs and our perceptions, we actually cause and create that experience that we're already carrying in to the relationship. It was funny because one of my mentors, his name is Dr. Ray Blanchard, and he shared a story with me one time. He said, I was in this training, and the training was to take place inside of an arena where a horse was sitting. And each one of the students had to walk into the horse arena, walk up to the horse, and carefully lift the leg up. And it takes, I don't know if you know this, but it takes a partnership between the person and the horse to be able to get the horse to trust you and lift its leg up and allow you to lift it up. And so what happens was, as people were walking into the arena and walking up to the horse, a lot of them were bringing their fear with them. They were bringing their insecurities, their doubts, their anxiety. And the horse could recognize that energy. It felt it. So if you walked in with an intention that I might get stepped on, or this thing is bigger than me, and you brought all of your concerns and your worries into that arena and walking up to the horse, that horse was not going to budge. It knows you're projecting that on to the experience of the horse, and the horse is not going to be in sync with you. It's not going to be coerced with you. It's not going to be unity. It's not going to be a one motion. And so you're sitting there struggling and pulling the leg, and that 2,000-pound horse is not going to budge. But it's only because you brought that negative, fearful, dysfunctional energy in with you. Now, the ones that were able to get that horse to open it up were the ones that were able to clear their mind, get present in the moment, and have the intention that when they walked in, that they trusted the horse. They walked up to the horse with the intention that I trust you, you trust me, we're one, and that when I get there, we're going to collectively, together with our energies, we're going to lift your hoof. And those people that walked in with that intention, boom, the leg lifted up. And he was telling me that everyone in the class was like, they were amazed because they saw 4 or 5 other people walking up struggling with it. And afterwards, when they interviewed them, they said, what did you do differently? And a lot of them were saying, I don't know, it wasn't what I was doing, it was how I was feeling when I walked in. And the reason why I'm sharing that with you is because it's the same way in relationships. If you got somebody that you've already labeled difficult, or they're hard to get along with, or they're stubborn, or whatever it is, it's like you walking into that horse arena with all that energy, that negativity, you're projecting it onto them and in the relationship. So you're almost causing for the relationship to be sabotaged. You're not being the space of open, unlimited possibilities for them to show up any other way other than difficult, challenging, and stubborn.
Yeah, not that I call myself a difficult person, but I know sometimes I could be difficult. So when I am being
challenging, you're definitely a challenge for me sometimes.
When I am challenging people, I know that sometimes I don't have the best way of separating the person from the situation.
That's right.
So sometimes it doesn't even have to do with the person. It's really what's going on. So if somebody comes and they start with their drama coming at me, I have a natural reaction to be challenging or difficult.
That's just like the horse. You're like the horse that's responding to whoever's bringing whatever energy into it. So if you can already feel the animosity, or you can tell because you see people walk into your house, right? Sometimes it might be even me. Let's say I'm frustrated, or I just had a flat tire and I'm walking in. You can tell, as my daughter, right? Always observing the father. You can tell whether I'm in a good mood, a bad mood, or and all kids know that already. They already know how and when to approach their parents to say, hey, can I borrow the keys tonight? Or hey, can I get some money? They already know what mood they're waiting for their mom or dad to show up in. It's the same way. And so that goes to show you that we're projecting our fears onto people. We're projecting our insecurities. We're projecting even our own perceptions of how we see people.
Yeah, and as a kid in that situation, I know that there's a lot of times where I'm scared to ask for something, even if it's just for affection or attention or love, or I just want to go, watch TV with my parents in the living room. If they have something going on, or one of them has some type of energy, that'll send me right back to my room. I'll walk into the other room to kind of feel it out, and if I don't feel a warm, welcoming, loving vibe or connection coming from my parents, I'll go the other way. And I know that probably happens to a lot of parents and their kids, or especially their teens.
And what's amazing is I would love for you to come up to me, to have the courage, especially if I'm frustrated or I'm not in a great mood and I'm in the house just deep in thought or whatever, or not have that welcoming face or energy. I would love for you to have the courage enough or the audacity to even be willing to be rejected by me and go, hey Dad, how about coming and laying with me and watching a movie? Are you kidding me? I would do a 360, my head would flip, and I would say absolutely. In fact, what you would be doing is, in that moment, you would be saving me from sabotaging my own self. Because in that moment, that's probably what I'm doing, is I'm self-sabotaging myself, and you would be throwing me a lifeline. But what I love about what you're saying is you're being honest enough to acknowledge that, hey, when you're showing up like that, you're kind of like this force field that's pushing me back. You're not giving me this safe communication to say, hey Dad, I want to be able to hang out with you, or hey, come over here, or hey, let's go for some ice cream or something like that.
Yeah, and we always say this, and I'm going to say it again just for our new listeners, if anyone is just joining us. We always talk about how a lot of parents will say, I don't understand why my son's like this, or I don't know why Susie does that. It's because you do that. It's because you're like that. It's because they learned from you.
Yeah, our kids are mirrors of us. They're a split image, and so every time that I see you frustrated or in your stuff, it's a great reflection of who I'm being, and that I'm not being that example that which I would like to see in you, so it's a constant reinforcement of, hey, well, if my kids are struggling and they're up against it must be in those moments that they're watching when I'm in there. And same thing with the great moments when I'm watching my kids challenge their fears and get out of their comfort zone and being willing to be courageous enough to take on this task. Those are those moments that I get to recognize that, hey, they're following some of the modeling that I've been willing to do, and share that with them and give them some insight in the backside of that story of watching me challenge those and have those kinds of breakthroughs and triumphs.
Another really cool thing is the scenario you gave about me inviting you to watch a movie. That never happens, or that happens maybe 15% of the time. That's a very rare situation, unless you do things like that, unless you invite your kids when they're upset, unless you are constantly coming back even though you feel rejected, because really what they're not doing is to hurt you. They need their space. So if you keep coming back, you keep doing that, then your kids are going to learn how to do that. So I don't want anyone to be listening to this and think, well, my kid never does that. Well, they don't do that because you don't do that.
Absolutely.
All right. Stay tuned for more of My Conscious Dad right here on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS.